Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at yet another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies.
Oh, man.
426, meaning yet another.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Good morning, Peter.
Hello, Bill, and hello, everybody.
So we are on podcast number 426. The title of this podcast is Analyzing Creative Real Estate Deals Easily.
All right.
Here is the description. Assessing a potential creative real estate deal involves taking the right steps, all of which lead to successful deals that don't attack your personal finances after the deal is made. So being adept at quickly analyzing properties by not only ruling out the flops, but then recognizing and securing the promising, profitable deals you need and want. That's a mouthful. Although this sounds simple enough, too many inexperienced creative real estate entrepreneurs walk away from great deals because they don't look inside of the numbers or fall weak on the deal structuring by overlooking simple math. In fact, be pleasantly surprised how easy it is to make offers if you do head math without a calculator. By understanding and following today's simple guidelines and techniques, you will soon do deals by mistake if you just try. Whether you are rookie or pro, there is something to rattle the thinking you already know and do. So let's tune in now.
So does that mean we don't have to go to Home Depot with a calculator and say, how much is sheetrock today? And how much do we need? Wait a minute. What about the tax?
Exactly.
Wait a minute. How much are 2x4s now? And I think I need a toilet plunger. Crap. No, huh? Okay.
All right, so let's do a little bit of our housekeeping. So this is podcast number 426. I have announced the last couple of podcasts pretty soon. I haven't released the date of the episode yet. This podcast will come to an end, and we will be going into a private podcast platform. You could still get the private, you'll still be able to get the podcast, but you'll just have to change the platform you're on. I know that I will lose some listeners because they like to listen to their regular podcast in their regular podcast apps, but we're going to put it behind a wall. And the reason why we're doing that is because if you think we've been giving a lot of information for free on these channels you've been listening to us, wait till we get into the new platform. There's definitely a lot of good stuff there. Plus, on top of that, we're going to be able to text you links and the documents I'm talking about. I'll be able to send them to you right on your phone. And there's a whole bunch of better features that will help you. So we'll let you know when that's happening. In the meantime, Thursday mornings, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we record this podcast on a stream, and that stream goes to Facebook, it goes to YouTube, it goes to Creative REI Reply, and it goes to Flipping Houses for Rookies. So you type in either one of those and you can find the live podcast there. And we also do LinkedIn. So if you go to any one of them platforms, you can type in there and I will be able to answer your questions inside of the platform. If you ask questions about the podcast, I'll gladly answer them. If it's outside of the podcast, I would prefer you go to Flipping Houses for Rookies or creativereireply.com and send a support ticket in, and one of us will get back to you to help you. Okay? And don't forget to subscribe us and like us and leave us comments and all that kind of stuff wherever you're watching or listening to us. I hate that part of the show. I wish I didn't have to do that, but 4 minutes and 18 seconds, like, gone.
Not bad. I've seen 15 minutes on a half an hour podcast. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, we'll record it, pre-record it one day if you can, unless it changes too much. We'll have 3. And you just insert the one you want for the day.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll give them to Emma. She'll pick.
Yeah, we should do that. Yeah. All right. So here we go, Pete. Let's start off with a profound yet bold truth today.
Okay.
The secret to real estate deal structuring is this saying. It's not how little you pay, but how much money you can make. Too many investors or real estate investors or entrepreneurs or whatever you want to call yourself, right? The reason why I say entrepreneurs is because when I say investor, the connotation of investor is you have a chunk of dough and you're trying to get a high rate of return on it.
Yeah, invest.
Right? So you have something to put in, so you get something out, right? Well, some people don't have something to put in. So the better description of a creative real estate person is an entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur has resources. Because what most people don't realize that haven't done real estate or are really young rookies is they think they need money, and money is only one little fraction of the deal, right? So creative real estate investors or creative real estate entrepreneurs are people that have resources. They not only have the money, but they have contractors and they have insurance and they have, paperwork people, and they have people that will want to buy it, and they have like a network once they get going, right? And too many people lose that in the transaction, that it's not just money. If you had someone that wanted a $400,000 house and you wrote them a check for $400,000, you don't own that house.
Yeah,
it doesn't have. It doesn't. No. If you had $400,000 worth of cash in your checkbook, and you were selling a house for $400,000, and I wrote you a check for $400,000, I don't own that house.
Why not?
Because we didn't do all the rest of the transaction. There's a whole bunch more than just the $400,000. So what? I gave you $400,000. Who knows that? There's so many other factors. Deeds and recording and lien releases and title searches and all the other things. I mean, and then keys and did you leave the house in the right condition, or did you break something on your way out? I mean, there's so many facets that should not make you nervous, because most of the time that stuff doesn't happen. But it's not just money. That's my point.
Sure.
Okay. So the secret to real estate deal structuring in a creative environment is not to worry about how little you pay, but how much money you could make. Very profound, right? So for 20 years, my core strategy in negotiating and making deals has been this one statement. I will pay any seller their asking price, as long as I get to pick the terms.
Yep.
See, for a very long time, we used to teach on this podcast, especially like with seller financing. It's like, if your seller is stuck on price and won't move from price, then I used to say, sneak in the back door and work on payments. Because you can make a lot of money that way. You can make more money on terms and payments than you can on equity. And really nobody knows what's going on except you. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Now here's the thing. Too many get wrapped up or wrapped around the details of the numbers. The minutia, or the trivial and small outcomes. The truth revealed is to stop looking at the individual numbers, like cash flow and equity, and look at them a little bit differently, which I'm going to teach you today.
Yeah.
That's like looking at an apple in a bin full of apples and wondering how the market could sell this one apple for 3 or 5 cents and make money. You're thinking to yourself, they had to grow it for all those months, and they had to fertilize it and water it, and somebody had to pick it, and then they had to ship it to you, and somebody in the grocery store had to put it in a bin. Like, how do you do that for 3 or 5 cents? How do they make money?
Yep.
Right? Well, the correct way to look at a deal like this is to use the whole numbers or the completed numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at the whole bin of apples. How many apples are in there at 5 cents a piece?
Mm.
Right? Because somebody's
Yeah.
not going to pick one apple and ship it.
Yeah, that wouldn't work out too well.
You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
So is this making sense? Because I'm
Yeah.
kind of just rattling on.
No, it does. No, because I've seen people talk about a house and they say something like, "Oh, the interest is too high, or the payment's too low." Like one part of it isn't okay.
Right.
And one of the things we say to each other is like, look at all the numbers. Like you're saying the whole thing,
Right.
like all the numbers. Like if you do all the math, how does it wind up?
Right.
One part might be not so hot, but the other part might be great. Like you said, if there's too high of a price of the house, do the term, hang on to it longer, do something, adjust something.
Right.
So altogether, it might work out, you know?
Right.
It's like you pick a friend, he has 2 flaws and he got 10 great qualities. So he's got 2 flaws. What are you going to do? Find a perfect guy? Welcome. Good luck on that one. Let me know. Give me a call.
There you go. You're saying you're the perfect friend?
I'm saying the guy got the 2 flaws and 10 good things. As opposed to your other friends have 10 flaws and 2 good things. That's why I'm still here. I've only got 2 bad ones. They're really bad though.
Just ask you and you'll tell us.
Just
right?
ask you. Ask me. I'll tell you. Yeah,
all right. So let me explain.
Yeah.
2 + 2 = 4. Do we agree?
Is this a trick question?
Okay. No.
Okay. Yes, then. No, you can be sneaky sometimes. I got to watch you. Go ahead. 2 + 2 is 4.
So that means that 4, you would think, is the completed number.
Yeah.
The finished number.
Okay.
Right? Now, to stretch my point so it is easier to grasp, what if we did 2 + 2 = 4, and then we added times 36?
Right.
Now we have 2 + 2 = 4 times 36, which is now 144.
Mm-hmm.
See, what happens is too many exclude the biggest profit center in creative real estate. Time.
Yeah. Time. That's crazy. I don't think you've ever said it that way, but it's totally true. The time factor. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So what was oh my God. I just went blank. The inventor of the light bulb, Edison. What did he say on his deathbed? They asked him supposedly, what was the greatest invention you ever saw?
Mm-hmm.
And he said simple interest.
Simple or compound?
Compound interest, yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't Einstein. I don't know who said that. It was him? Was it Einstein?
It was Einstein.
It was somebody smart.
The point is that
wasn't me.
The point is that compound interest completely works.
Yeah.
Why does it work? Because it's just little at a time.
But it adds up.
Both my daughters are 30 years old, and if I get an opportunity, which is not enough in my head, I preach to them. Picture that, and I tell them I just stepped on my soapbox, so hang on.
Mm-hmm.
And the sermon goes like this: God damn it, figure out how to put $200 or $250 a month in an IRA. You're 30 years old, 33, 32. One's 30, the other one's 33. $250 a month. Does that sound like a lot of money? Maybe in their situation it is, but I promise you, if you put $250 a month at 30 years old in an IRA, by the time you are 65, you will be a multi-millionaire, and the dividends alone will be your retirement.
Yep.
And you know what? When you're 65 years old, you could be paid $1 million in cash to say, what did that $250 take away from your life? What did you not get because you put that $250 a month away? And you won't be able to answer the question.
Mm-hmm.
You won't.
Yep.
This is what it's like when you're deal structuring.
Mm.
That philosophy is what you have to think about, right?
Yeah.
And there are exceptions, and I'm going to cover them. All right. So 2 + 2 = 4, but it's only part of the formula because we're looking at something like how much am I making per month for my renter?
Mm-hmm.
And how much am I paying? How much are my expenses, or how much am I paying my seller? Most don't even look at the expenses. They just look at how much am I paying my seller, not knowing that there are some things that might have to be paid for. Like, for example, there's a city that doesn't do trash pickup, so you got to pay $30 every month for trash
Yeah.
because you missed it.
Yeah. I don't have this. I wouldn't think of that until the bill came. Oops.
And I'm not saying that that happens because a lot of our buyers will pay those things anyways, but I'm just saying that it's not just how much you pay your seller. How about the taxes? How about the insurance? I have three properties right now where the insurance has gone up a couple $100, and I haven't changed my rent yet, and I need to, and I'm just not sure if I can.
Yeah.
Okay. If you own property right now, one of the things that you'll talk about, or you should talk about, is the expenses of taxes and insurance that have gone up.
Yeah.
Right. And when you listen to the candidates, the presidential candidates, I'm going to tell you, one of them wants to double capital gains tax. If that happens, we are in big trouble. The country will go in a massive decline.
Well, that's a perfect example of not looking at all the numbers. You look at just do that, look how much money we make. Like,
Right.
whoa, what's that going to do? Other things will happen. Prices go up for us, the consumers, because they got to get that money from somewhere. It doesn't come out of the sky. It comes from us. So if you look at all the numbers, you see what will happen. So short-sighted non-business people don't get it. They just look at what, and someone else will say, oh, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, Chris says plus unrealized gains too. That's a whole nother story, Chris. I completely agree with you there.
Yep.
All right. See, if we were doing 2 + 2 = 4 as our monthly cash flow and only see the math as 4 and not times 36, you will miss the finish line of 144 and make a bad decision. Right? And I'm going to, as I go a little bit further today, you're going to be kind of blown away, I think.
Okay.
Because there are numbers I know most don't think about. I remember when I first went into Joe's coaching group. Remember you and I went in there?
Sure.
And then I stayed for a while, several years, and I've been coaching in there. And at first he thought I think he thought I was full of shit, because when I started telling him how much I make on my properties, monthly, he's like, how are you doing that? And I showed him, and he's like, wow. And I'm going to talk about that today.
Good.
So how do you decide if a deal is bad and what to do with it? Or how do you decide to whack it? In other words, get rid of it, or hold it close to your chest and nurture it.
Yeah.
How do you know which deal is like that? Right? Now, I've always spouted, especially here, that if you have multiple deals in the pipeline and you lose a deal, you shouldn't get too upset about it. Yeah. Unless it's a crusher. Unless it's a big, fat, hundreds of thousands of dollar deal.
Oh, don't even say that. Don't even say it.
Then you could be sad.
But it's true, any business, whether it's people walking in the door to buy pencils, you hope 10 people walk in, 3 walk out and don't buy anything. What are you going to do? Just wait for 3 more to come in. It happens to me, happens to everybody. Because you expect, what is frustration is a function of expectation.
There you go. I've heard that before.
So I had to, you got it from you, but I don't know what you got. But I had to, with any of my businesses, expect something's not going to work out and don't freak out. Okay, duh, no wonder. We don't have 100%, it's not life, 100%. So you just move on and get some more.
Right. Yeah, I've recently done that with this whole election thing.
Yeah, how?
I've simplified it in my head.
Yeah, what'd you do?
So it kind of goes like this. It's like, what does, I should not be doing this right here, but what does the government do with our tax money? With your tax money, Pete? I'll ask you, what does the government do with your tax money?
I think they keep it. I don't know. They buy crazy things with it and they spend it. I don't know. I don't think they help us with it. I think they blow it.
So what I'm doing is I'm putting my support behind the person that I believe could do the best thing with that tax money. Not the group that doesn't tell us what they're doing with the tax money.
Yeah.
I'd rather put my support behind someone that's going to help the country and lower energy in Texas and someone that has real life business experience. Right?
Yep.
That's what I'd rather do. Now, obviously, I shouldn't be talking about politics, but it's the same way when you're doing deals.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I bring it up, because where do you want to put your energy and your money? You want to put it behind someone that's like not really revealing their cards and trying to hide things from you, or do you want to put it with someone that's going to tell you the truth and give you all the numbers and actually want help?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's like when we test people. They ask if they can trust us. So, well, I need to do 3 things about this deal. We go do them. We find some tax records. We do some research on something. We ask them to get their mortgage statement and how much the taxes are. 3 days later, they don't know.
Right.
So, and then like, how are we supposed to work with somebody like that? And then we make an appointment to go see the house. They don't show up. How are we supposed to work with a person like that?
The way you do something. That's right. Go ahead. You say that first.
It starts bad. It's going to end badly.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the way you do something is the way you do everything. And we say trust is when your words match your actions.
Yeah, you got to prove yourself a little bit. It's not hard.
All right, so let's reel back into time a bit, and let's bring back the old equalizing formula that guarantees you never, never, ever, ever, never, ever, ever, ever make a mistake in a deal structure.
Yeah, what's that?
And the surprising formula is money now, money monthly, money later.
Sure.
It's a staple in our business.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably, and I am going to, for the first time in 426 podcasts, I'm going to reveal things that I've never talked about with money now, money monthly, money later today.
No kidding.
Yep. And I'm going to ping it in so you get it. Okay. This is probably the most important formula you can master in real estate if you want to make gargantuan profits.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's kind of like how can I say this? I guess a stupid analogy. It's kind of like making a snowman.
Okay, I'm all ears.
You have like pieces and parts, and you have ideas of how big the trunk should be, and the middle should be, and the head should be. And some people have an idea with a hat and a scarf, and some people use a carrot for a nose and sticks for arms. And my point is you kind of build it, right, to get the outcome you want. So, like, if the face is not what you like, you just clean the face off and pack it with snow and start over again.
Yeah.
That's what money now, money monthly, money later is. You just keep kind of moving it around and adjusting it and getting things to where you want, like you said earlier or alluded to earlier. So if you're paying too much, that means now you got to get cash flow.
Yeah.
Or equity.
Yeah, I like when you do that. You do that. Like if the seller's asking too much on one number, you ask for more or less on another one to compensate, because it's reality.
Right.
You know?
And the truth is that I built almost a $3 million portfolio when I first started to make $2,000 a month or lose $2,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up selling most of that portfolio. It took me 5 years to clean it out, but I didn't have the money now, money monthly, money later. And I didn't have the formulas I had because a lot of those properties were subject to, and I was paying full price for them. And when 2008 and 9, which actually happened in 2007, but 2008 and 9 hit, I ended up with all kinds of problems, because when properties decreased in value, I had problems.
Yeah.
Right. It took me 5 years to fix that, which is why when we talk about subject to property, I tell you got to have a 20% buffer in equity.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So again, like I said, this money now, money monthly, money later is a huge factor in our math, but few consider it or use it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what I mean. 2 things. Number one, when you are doing deal structuring math, you need to pinpoint exact areas where you are creating income.
Mm.
Like you said, are we creating income on price, on equity?
Yeah.
Are we creating income on monthly now? Or are we creating income on monthly? I said
Money
that.
later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's either the deposit kind of money coming in or the money that comes every month, little, dribbles in decent chunks. Or in the end, when we cash out and make a chunk of money, where do you expect it to happen? Right?
For example, you could have a deal that you're paying full market price for, and there's really no equity. So
Yeah.
you're paying $300,000 or $290,000 for a $300,000 house,
Mm.
but you get really good terms.
Yeah.
So now what happens is you could make no money on the purchase and no money in equity. You could raise the price because you're doing terms 5% or 10%, so you can make a little bit of money now.
Mm-hmm.
But the real profit in the deal could be like all of a sudden over the course of 5 years, you make $60,000 in the payments.
Sure. Yeah. What's wrong with $1,000 a month coming into your paycheck? What's wrong with that?
And you could do that, especially nowadays when interest is 6%, but yet just a few short years ago they were only 3%.
Right.
It's not hard to do that. Not that we charge interest, but the current value of money now at 6% is a lot less than the value at 3%.
Right.
So if your mortgage payment is $1,300 at 3%, it's now going to be $1,600 or $1,700 at 6%.
Sure.
Right. So the worth of the monthly payment will go up.
Right. But the other thing that can happen is over the 3, 4, 5 years you have the property, the mortgage gets paid down, so equity happens, and the price of the house probably will go up.
Right.
So at the end, the equity appears over time. So there's a time thing you're talking about, right?
Appreciation. That's right.
Depreciation, but also paying the mortgage down. Now there's $30,000-$40,000 that was there in the beginning. While you made $1,000 waiting for that, shoot me, that's not a bad deal.
Right. And investors don't look at the numbers like what we're talking about, right? So we're saying, okay, so number one, I have 2 reasons what I mean, and I'm talking about, again, time is a huge factor in our math, but if you consider it or use it correctly. So one of them is, which I just said, and we talked about, is when you're doing deal structuring math, you need to pinpoint exact areas you are creating income so you can do the proper math, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, once you spot those areas, you can then decide how much time and resources to put into a deal.
Right.
Right. And I'm going to come back to that because that's the biggest punchline for today. I'm going to come back to that.
Mm-hmm.
But let's break this theory down to some real life practical uses. Because I talk about money now, money monthly, and money later all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I've ever done what I'm about to do right now. So I want to give you complete reality and complete real life ways that these work so you can understand the importance or significance of these numbers and why they are so valuable to your career, why they are so valuable to your success, and why it's so simple. And if you don't do it, you're just in trouble. You're just gambling, right?
Sure.
And you don't need to have calculators and all that kind of stuff to do this analyzing. Okay. Or if you have a calculator, I'll tell you which numbers to put in a calculator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's start with money now.
Okay.
Money now means the amount of cash influx you get within the next 30 days in a deal. Influx ITs is Hip National Bank in your pocket, baby.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm talking about is money that you can, that's spendable cash. Now, I will tell you on a couple of these, I prefer you don't spend the cash right away. The first couple you need to save, but I'll explain that to you. So I'm going to give you 5 examples on each one of these so you understand where. So money now, here's the first example.
Mm-hmm.
On a sandwich lease option deal, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
a slot deal or a rent to own or however you do it, depending on all the equity and all that stuff, right? On a sandwich lease option deal, it's the difference between what your buyer is giving you for his or her option consideration deposit and what you have to pay the seller.
Yep.
Okay.
For deposit.
So if my buyer says, my seller says to me, I'll take 300,000, it's worth 300,000. Okay. And you could go raise the price by 5%, which is doable. Okay? Because if I were to pay for if you were to buy my computer today for $1,000 in cash and give me $1,000 with cash, you're paying $1,000.
Yep.
But if you bought my computer for $1,000 and swiped your credit card for 24 months, you're paying more than $1,000. This is what people like houses do. It's the American way. They know they're doing it. You're not ripping anybody off. It's part of our culture. Okay.
Yep.
So the point is this: the first couple of times you do this, well, let me back up. If you don't stay in the deal and the only money you're making is money now, which is that $15,000, because 300,000 times 5% is 15 grand. So you're going to buy an option agreement from your seller for $100 option consideration deposit. You're going to find your seller and you're going to sell that option agreement or assign it to your buyer, and they're going to pay you 15 grand for that piece of paper. Okay, so first of all, you don't need to know crap about that deal. There is no deal structuring. There's none of that. And if you listen to podcast 425, I go over that. And if you listen to podcast number 427, I'm going to bang the crap out of it again because it's too overlooked on people that are trying to get wrapped up into deal structuring and what to say to sellers and all that. You just stop doing that. Now, eventually you'll get there, but not in the beginning. Okay. So what I'm saying is, if you're going to do the deal and not stay in it, then you can grab the cash. So the 15 grand is money now, but there is no money monthly and there is no money later for you because it goes to your seller. So you're like a hit and run. You're doing much like what a realtor would do. This is what we call a one night stand. It's just one time and that's it. Okay. So you keep the money and you're done. Now, if you're going to do a sandwich lease option, what we call a rent to own, which is a sandwich lease option, but you stay in it because you have 15% worth of equity and 20 or 25% worth of cash flow, and you're going to stay in it. Now you're going to write a lease option with your seller. And then when your buyer comes along, you're going to write a separate lease option to your buyer. Because your seller has one set of numbers on it, the low numbers, and your buyer's lease option is going to have the higher numbers. So you're not just selling the option agreement, you're not just assigning it for your money. Now what's happening is you're actually the person in control of the property. So now your buyer is going to pay you. They're going to give you the $15,000 for down payment, and they're going to pay you enough money so you have 20% worth of cash flow, and you're going to have 15% worth of equity. That is worth your time staying in the deal. Now, when you do those deals, that 15 grand, I don't suggest you spend that money. I suggest you hold that money the first deal or two and get a $20,000 or $30,000 reserve for your first two deals. So later on, you never have to worry about. So if somebody doesn't pay a monthly payment or something happens, you have a cushion. After that, as you go along and do more and more deals, you take a percentage of that money and put it away, and it keeps getting the percentage that you put away is less and less because at some point you'll have a lot of dough. And oh yeah, by the way, I strongly, with a shotgun to your head, suggest this. That money should be in a bank that you don't normally use, and it should be in a bank that doesn't have an online account. So you have to drive there, physically take the money out and deposit it into your bank. So it is absolutely freaking annoying to get the money out of the bank. And you should keep it in a place that you can't see that money so you're not tempted to use it. So you never remember how much is there. You should hide it from yourself.
I don't think there's any banks that don't have online anymore, though.
Yeah, there are. Well, you don't have to sign up for them, but there's little little like what I suggest is see, I use TD Bank because we go back and forth between Florida and here, and I want a national bank.
Yeah.
But where I have my all my deposits and all my rent money is in a bank called Liberty Bank, and there's only a couple of them around in Connecticut, 10 of them maybe, but they're not in Florida, they're not anywhere else, and I don't know how to get online with them. Matter of fact, I get bank statements and I don't even open them. I give them to your wife, who's my bookkeeper, and don't even open them because I don't want to know how much money's there.
That explains a lot. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's really having a good reserve. It's your money. You just like, why spend it? You didn't need it before. Just hang on to it for a while.
Well, here's the thing: if you prepare for a rainy day, the rainy day never comes.
Exactly. If you don't,
As soon as that, and I just did this just recently. As soon as that reserve account comes down, and it gets a little hairy, your attention goes on it, and it's like, oh man, I'm nervous about that. What happens if? And sure as shit, that if always happens.
Oh boy.
Right, and then you get dog piled, and then it starts to decline. Right.
Yeah.
All right. So number 2, we're talking about money now. I just gave you number 1.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Here we go. We're doing a fix and flip.
Yeah.
This is actually a deal for me. Let's say we pay $115,000.
Mm-hmm.
House is worth $260,000. We paid $115,000. It needs repairs. $50,000 worth of repairs.
Right.
But the repairs are outdated things like kitchens and floors and
Just
paint.
old.
Yeah.
But it's livable. Everything works. The heat, the water, everything. It's just not pretty and updated. You wouldn't put it on TV.
Right.
Yeah.
So I borrowed $125,000 because the loan to value ratio was really good.
Yeah.
I paid about $7,000 to what you call pre-having it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I put $7,500 or $8,000 in my pocket.
Right.
3 weeks later, I got a $10,000 security deposit. I've had that property for 6 years, been collecting $1,000 a month. So that's another $60,000.
Mm-hmm.
No, more than that. 72 grand.
That's right. It's 12 months. Yeah.
And I just refinanced it and took another $50,000 out of it.
Mm-hmm. And what's the property worth now?
$425.
Exactly.
Right. But the point is money now was $7,000 because I over borrowed from the private lender and I took out $7,000 at the closing. I took out 10. Am I saying this right? No, I'm not saying this right.
Did you?
Yeah, I paid $110, not $115.
Right.
I
$110.
paid $110. I borrowed $125 because it was $15,000. I said that wrong.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So I paid $110, and it was easy. It was a probate deal. There was a woman that was a spinster that lived in the house, and she gave it to her brother, and her brother was in another state. And all he wanted was his money. Just what I'm talking about in this podcast. He was blinded by the cash.
Yeah.
Now, that guy got $110,000 worth of cash, and I guarantee you he didn't make $8,000. He didn't make $72,000 and another $50,000 and still own the property on his $110,000. Guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Huge mistake because he paid attention to one number, only one number, didn't look at the full picture.
Yeah, he didn't want the hassle. Well, he didn't. He got $110,000 was in his pocket because it wasn't his house; it was his sister's. It was just like a gift from heaven. But he was in another state. He wasn't a real estate guy. He didn't want to bother with it. How do you get somebody to rent it, clean it up? He didn't care. Right. That's what we do.
My point is he was not trained on looking at the numbers like I'm training you right now.
Yep.
Number 3. You get a deal for 65 cents on a dollar, right? Which happens. I don't go looking for them, but when I'm negotiating and somebody says they want a cash offer, I always do 70 cents on a dollar for cash offers. You know, the Mayo formula, maximum allowable offer, which I learned from Ron LeGrand, was the after renovated value or in good shape. See, it's not a comp. A comp is just a comp, a comparable. After renovated value is above a comp because it's got brand new stuff like kitchens and bathrooms and stuff like that. So it tends to be a little bit more at the renovated value because it's the prettiest house in the neighborhood, right? So, or the newest house in the neighborhood at the time of the sale. So you take that number, you multiply it by 70%, minus your repairs, and then you're left with what they call a maximum allowable offer. Well, I pull another $5,000 back from that, and that's my wholesale number.
Mm-hmm.
So when I offer cash, even on pretty houses that don't need repairs, I just do 70% minus my $5,000, and I have a wholesale number.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And people do that because they want the cash, especially like probate, where there's like 3 kids and they just all want their, like you said, free dough.
Yeah.
Right. So it happens in the right deals, and these deals fall in my lap because I don't go looking for them. They just fall in your lap when they happen. Right. So my point is when you get a 55 or 65 cents on a dollar, right, and don't want the deal, you just add $5,000 or $10,000 to it and you wholesale it. You sell it to another investor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or I'm getting completely off script here. Or
yes,
you buy the property for 65 cents on a dollar. And I don't talk about this. I want to do this actually. I want to do this deal because I thought of it a while ago and I'll tell you the reason why later, but because I have a private lender that wants to get rid of some money right now. So here's the point. You pay 65 cents on a dollar or 70 cents on a dollar. You pay cash for the property. Okay?
Yep.
You don't want the property.
Okay.
So here's what you do. You get a private lender that will take you out 5 years. Or 10 if you can get it, but we'll say 5 years. Usually IRA money does this easily. You buy the house at 70 cents on a dollar, and you turn around and sell it to the investor for 80 cents on a dollar for a higher interest rate, which you're not buying and selling interest, but if your payment is $1,000 a month, you charge him $1,200 a month. And you become the bank. You get the money from the private lender, you mark it up, minimally mark up the property, because if there's an investor that would pay 70 cents on a dollar so they can go fix it up, if you give them a 5-year term, now it's worth 80 cents on a dollar, 85 cents on a dollar. And then you turn that into monthly payments over the course of 5 years with a balloon payment. Now, the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to fix it up, right?
Yeah.
So if you get it back, you're getting a fixed up house.
Oh, yeah. If something happens and it reverts to you. Yeah.
Even if they destroyed the house and they demo it, then you're ahead because now you don't have to demo it. But you're 65 cents on a dollar, 70 cents on a dollar, you have room to go do repairs. You see? The point that I'm making now, is when you buy properties like that, there's money now. The money now is the 5 or 10 grand that you can flip it for.
Yeah.
Number 4, if you do subject to deals the way I teach, because I have a 6.5 hour course I did on a Saturday that when people watch it, because it's 6.5 hours, when people watch it, the raving reviews I get from them are probably the highest reviews I get on anything I've ever done. But one of the things I talk about in there is how you can buy a subject to deal and wholesale it legally. And when you do that, you could pick up an extra 5 to 20 grand, doing it the same way we were talking about before. You get a property that you don't want or in another state. This is usually what happens in a virtual state, right? And you could get the property, and if you close, it's just a matter of doing the right paperwork. If you close it correctly, right? And the documents, which in this course that I do, I forgot how much it is. I think it was $1,000, and I charge $600 or something. If you want it, just send me a support ticket, right? And I'll send you a link. But if you close this deal the way I tell you how to use the paperwork, you can actually tell your seller that my partner is going to be taking over. Never tell them what the partner's name is, and then just wholesale it to another investor and let them give you a wholesale fee for a subject to deal, completely legal, done in escrow in an attorney's office.
Yeah.
It's incredible. That's money now. Right? Number 5, and this is overlooked tremendously. This is way, way overlooked. and I miss this because we're not in enough houses. This works when you go looking at houses.
Okay.
The stuff in the house. I have a friend of mine that used to put houses, $1 million houses, $2 million houses on an option agreement, and then get their agreement that they can have all the furniture because they got this 10,000 square foot house and they don't know what to do with the furniture. And they get them to give them the furniture. They go in and sell all the furniture and make like 10 grand or 20 grand on an auction. They hire an auctioneer and the auctioneer goes through the house and does all the work.
Wow.
I can't tell you how many times I picked up lawnmowers and sold them for $200-300. I can't, riding lawnmowers. I can't tell you. I was in a shed one time and we found like 150 golf clubs and I made $300. Right? I mean, I could go on telling you stories for the rest of the podcast about these things that I've done. But there's possessions in the house that you can actually sell.
Or keep, like the nice exercise bike in the other room.
Exactly.
Sure, we get stuff. Propane tanks, grills, whatever, stuff.
All right, so those are some good examples of how to get money now.
Yep.
Does that make sense? Does that re-entertain the idea of money now?
What's clever about it is, you teach certain deal structures, but there's also like just common sense. You have two people and you have some property. What do you want to do with it? What can we do with it? What if we did this? What if we did that? It's just like, it's creative. No wonder they call it creative. Right. And you think of all these things.
Yeah. Well, I've done them. That's why. And I don't think of them. I've had to figure them out because I'm usually in a pickle and I'm trying to get out of trouble.
Oh, well, there's that too, huh?
Most of the time, yeah. All right, so here's let me see. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 examples of money now.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go a little quicker because we're getting towards the end of the show here.
Okay.
All right, so number one, obvious one is the difference between the buyer's monthly payment and the expenses of the property each month, like your mortgage, your taxes, insurance, HOA, and anything else that might pop up.
Right.
Like, for example, they have a loan with daddy.
Oh.
Or, there's a balloon note at the end of 5 years. So you're gonna negotiate the balloon note and get a private lender to buy it for 40 cents on a dollar. Oh. So now you have a private lender to deal with that. Do you understand what I just said?
Yeah. Well, if you owe somebody money, you could negotiate and have them take a lesser amount all at once.
You will be surprised at how many people have unsecured loans to purchase properties from family members. Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. All right. So that's the obvious one. So how much you collect from the buyer and how much you have to pay the seller and all those things. That's money monthly, cash flow. Okay. Which, by the way, the cash flow is what's going to retire you from your current income source. Okay. Number two, one of our greatest hidden secrets is how we do is how we outdo every other investor. So I learned this from Joe. Like, what you do is I preach for a long time, you want to ask for 5% down because FHA asks for 5%. Now, yes, you can get a chat for mortgage that's just 3%, but not everybody qualifies for that. But everybody qualifies for a 5% mortgage. So you want to have 5% down from your buyer that's doing a lease option with you, so they have the money in the bank. So now all you need to do is fix their credit or whatever they got to do to get qualified for an FHA mortgage.
Right.
But the money's in the house before they move in.
They paid it. That's all the bank wants to know. They're only lending 95% and they're happy.
Right. So the bottom line is when they move into the house, that 5% is non-refundable consideration deposit because it's named and talked about on an option agreement. When they execute the option agreement, meaning they send you a letter and saying, I have a loan and I want to close, you take that money that's considered non-refundable option consideration deposit, and it's the same money. You already have it. You're going to change the words onto the purchase and sales contract and call it an earnest deposit. Right. It's the same money. So the person 2 years later doesn't need to have an additional down payment. You're going to rename it, and you're going to show the bank that you have evidence that they actually gave it to you. And that's all the bank cares about. Okay. And it could be 15 years later and it still works. Okay. Yeah. So the point that I'm trying to make is the mistake I made for a very long time was only asking for 5% down.
Oh.
I changed my language to, well, we need 10% down. How much do you have? Because it used to be when we talked to people, we would be like, yeah, we're selling a house and this is how it works. Okay, yada, yada. How much do you have down? And we would just ask them an arbitrary number to find out they're going to give you the lowest amount of money. Everybody wants to buy a house in Connecticut for $1,200 a month and $3,000 to $5,000 down. Everybody wants to do that. That's the Rob job number, right? So I started asking for 10%, which not many have. And I would say, okay, well, how much do you have? And they would tell me then, because it's not up to the 10%. So on a $300,000 house, they need 30 grand. Well, I don't have 30 grand. I only have like 20 grand. So first of all, it elevates their number from the 5,000.
Sure.
Okay. But more importantly, what we do is we let them get out of the deal. And I prefer to do this even if they have the 20 grand. Well, how about if you give me 5% down? Give me 15 of your 20 grand.
Really? You don't take the whole 20?
No.
Okay.
Because I want the cash flow. Because now, if you take that other $15,000, you take $15,000 and you divide it by 36 months, all of a sudden now you got $416 a month extra cash flow. So if you were making $400 a month on your first one, which is the cash flow between what you're paying your seller and collecting from your buyer, let's say that's $400, and now you have down payment the same as $400. Now you got an $800 a month deal for 3 years. That's why I prefer it. I'd rather have the cash flow every month and the security of getting paid than the extra $5,000, because that $5,000 will go on my checkbook and in a month or two it'll be gone, or I'll put it in some hidden account and I'll never see it. I'd rather have the extra $416 a month to pay my own bills, or pay for repairs, or use it for reserves, or whatever. And not enough people do that.
Yeah.
Number 3. Let me see here. Yeah, all right. I explained that enough. Number 3. Now here's one we don't speak of enough, and it's on fix and flips. See, here's when we talk about money monthly, right? Like when we say you talk to a seller, you need 4 numbers, right? You need to have the price, you need to have the payment, you need to have the duration, and you need to have the deposit if needed.
Yeah. Well,
people think that's just for creative real estate. It's not. If you have a fix and flip, you need to know what your price is, because you need to know how much to borrow.
Yeah.
You need to know what your payments are for that loan. You need to know how long before you have to pay it off. And you need to know how much do you have to put down for the private lender to give you money. So those numbers work for everybody. In this particular case, we're talking about a negative number. See, we always think it's a positive number. This is a negative number, because on fix and flips, how much is it costing you each month? How much is that? Right? And how long do you have to carry these negative numbers?
Yeah, holding costs.
And if you buy well enough, in other words, cheap enough, or because I load those onto my seller. Like, look, dude, I got to carry this thing for 6 months. It's going to cost me 10 grand just to carry it. So I got to get a discount. I didn't make this house that way. You did.
That's right.
Right. So I load it on to my numbers. Right. And then I try to borrow it from the lender and then give it back to him as a payment.
Yep.
Right. But if you do like we do it, you figure out the 12-month duration. When I do my numbers, I figure out the 12-month duration. And I'm going to tell you that I've been doing this to you for 5 years, and you have no idea I do this to you. Maybe
What?
I figure out the expenses for 12 months. I figure out how much my renovations are going to be by square footage, because I don't do, like you said earlier, go to figure out how much I do it by square footage. Right? My average number used to be $25 per square foot for a renovation. Now it's more like $30, $32 with inflation. right?
Easily.
And
Yeah.
I just do square footage, and I always come within a few $1,000s, right or wrong. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So my point is this is I figure out 12 months worth of my holding costs, which by the way is not only the mortgage to my lender, it's also the electric bill and all the utilities so the guys could work, and the heat, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's also the taxes, it's also the insurance, it's also cutting the grass, it's also plowing the driveway, because all that's going to happen in 12 months.
Yep.
Okay. And then I play a game with myself.
Mm-hmm.
I say, okay, well, my expenses are going to be $15,000 on this deal. I'm just making up a number.
Yeah.
And my renovation is going to be $40,000. So my bonus comes from cutting those numbers down. So if I can flip within 12 months, like do the flip in 6 months instead of 12 months,
Mm-hmm.
and I figured 15 grand in expenses, I just made $7,500.
Yep.
If I get the renovation done, and I don't mean like cheaping out or beating up the contractors, or if I could maneuver some things like, oh, well, we really don't need to put that wall there, right? Or I find a dumpster guy that's $200 less than the other dumpster guy, right? Or instead of having the contractor doing the demolition and charging me $3,000, I find somebody else to do it for $1,500. You know, there's all different ways. It's just being clever. It's not ripping anybody off or negotiating anybody. And my $40,000 renovation comes down to, we'll say, $32,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked up $15,000 as bonus.
Yep.
Right. That's just common sense, but that is money monthly when you figure it out correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Number 5, if you get a seller to pay you 2 to 3 months after your closing. Right? Suppose you have a deal and it's a little bit rocky and you're like, I don't know if I could sell it. You say to the seller, well, look, here's what happens. You know, it's October 3rd. I'm going to take over the property October 1st. The thing is when you got your mortgage was 45 days behind. So when you're paying October, you're really paying September's numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So you say, so you have to pay October. So you always get 1 month easily.
Yeah.
And for me to give you the price you're asking, the only way I could do that is if you make an extra 2 payments. So you get them to make 3 payments.
Mm-hmm.
Then you rent it within 30 days and you pick up those payments. So let's say you're renting for $2,000 a month and you can get somebody in there in the first month and you got 2 free months. You just picked up $4,000.
Right. And you say to him, you need those couple of months because of the price you're paying him. Is that what you just said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't think I ever got that piece of it. So I always thought like, geez, when you get somebody in there, you should start paying the guy because somebody's there. Just go, hey, somebody's in there. Why don't you pay me?
Yeah. Well,
but
one of the ways that I could pay you that amount of money is if you make 3 payments. And if you could pick up $4,000 and they're asking $300,000, you take the $4,000 off. So now you're only paying $296, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's move on
because you didn't have to
now
pay.
we're at the hour and I still have 2 more pages of notes. So, so these days I only do that when a seller's being a glutton, which a lot of them are. Okay, so normally I don't do that. And now we have money later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so number 1, obviously the difference between what we buy the house for and what we sell the house for is our equity.
Yep.
Right. And that could be an option consideration deposit, right? Right.
Say the last part again.
Yeah. So obviously, if we buy a house for $250 and sell it for $300,
Mm-hmm.
and we get $300,
Hmm.
our equity is not $50,000 because we're going to have the money now that they gave us. If they gave us $10,000 down, that means they only owe us $290, and we have $40,000.
Well, we got it, but we got some in advance.
Exactly.
Hey, it's better. We got it in advance. It's not a bad thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
The balance is 40.
So that's the obvious one, all right?
Yeah.
Buy low, sell high. You don't have to do that anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. The second thing is all the tax write-offs you're going to get if you get the deed in your name, right? I just got my taxes back this year, and you would be flabbergasted at my tax return.
Mm-hmm.
right? All these ways I make money, and the government's sending me checks.
Yep.
Number 3, and this is a good one. If you do a subject to deal and have a second note, in other words, the house is worth $300,000, they're asking $240,000, and they want $20,000. They want $20,000 out of the deal. So I'll tell them the only way I give you $20,000 is if I write you a note in second position, and when I get paid from my buyer, I'll give you the $20,000. No interest, no payments.
Yeah.
Right. Many do that. Sometimes I'll do $30,000 to entice their greed glands.
Right.
Okay. So the point is this: now you have a $20,000 note, and all of a sudden, either your buyer says they want to cash you out, or you make money from another house somewhere because somebody cashed you out and you need to place money. Because a lot of people think when they cash out their money, they cash out a house, they need to take the proceeds and go buy another house. Well, that's not true, because if you start paying down loans on the houses that you already have, you can make just as much money, if not more, than buying another house.
Yep.
Right. So in this particular case, you would go back to this person and say, hey, I know that $20,000 note's not due for 3 more years. Would you consider taking $5,000 or $7,000 for that note and give me a lien release? 90%, 95% of the people will take money now instead of money later. And it's 2 years after the deal. And it always comes like right before Christmas, or like, oh my God, I got to buy a new car, or something happened, and they'll take the money. So that's a huge, huge, huge factor.
Yep.
Number 4, you need to add up your principal reduction payments that you pay, that your buyer pays for. So this is equity, right? You talk about this all the time. So your buyer's paying rent, you're taking the rent and paying an amortized mortgage, which means every month some is principal and some is interest. And every time you pay down the principal amount, even if it's $300 a month, that means you now have $300 worth of equity.
Yep.
So you might have a property. Excuse me. You might have a property that when you took it over, you owe $240,000, and after the 5 years, because you've been paying the mortgage, and now all of a sudden the payoff comes, now you probably only owe like $225,000. So you got an extra $15,000 worth of equity.
Yep.
People don't think of that, but you got to consider these numbers, right? Number 5, like I just talked about earlier, how about with your equity, you refi the property?
Oh yeah, right.
Now here's the amazing thing. Here's the most incredible thing to me. This is the most dumbfounded thing that you could probably blow me over when you go, when we talk about this. It blows me over every time. I get weak at the knees. I see stars, like I'm like ready to faint. And I'm not exaggerating, because I don't understand this for the life of me. Why people don't do this.
What's that?
When you refi, like I'm talking about, I have a property that I just told you about. I'm doing a refi and I'm taking out $50,000, right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. That $50,000 is non-taxable. That's not income. It's not capital gains. It's a loan on the property. Not only is it non-taxable, but the amount of money that I pay interest on that higher amount of money, I get a tax reduction for.
That's right.
The government's going to pay me and reward me for taking this chunk of dough out.
Wow.
Because they want debt. But my debt is on a $450,000 house. My debt is $170,000, $180,000. It's like so low, it's not worth it. It keeps my portfolio, because I don't like to have my portfolio more than 40% leveraged, because I do things like this. I don't understand why people wouldn't do this. So as you're going through life and you're paying down these mortgages and you're getting principal reduction, at any given time you could do a DSCR loan, which is an investor's loan, and refinance it, because DSCR loans refinance. You need no money down. It cost me, I think, $1,800 for closing costs, so I can get $15,000 that I don't claim on my taxes. I don't have anything to do. And the difference is instead of making $1,000 a month in this property, I'm making, $500 or $600 a month on the property.
But you're getting principal reduction now, which you weren't before, because you're paying interest only. So now you're going to be owning more of the house as it goes. And in the end, your cash out is going to be bigger. So
you're worried about retirement later on? This is where the retirement money is. So you go through life and you have all your tenants paying your mortgages down, paying them down, paying them down. So you go 10 years and all of a sudden the mortgages that you used to owe $1 million for, now you owe 200,000, and you're retired, and you're using the property income. So you don't need to have income, because DSCR loans are based on the property income. So it doesn't matter that you're 70 years old and you just got Social Security coming in. They don't care about that.
Yeah, because the property is making the income. That's where the money's coming from.
Your portfolio is making the income, and they're going to see that you got enough money to pay the loan.
It's like a business loan based on the business, not your personal credit, like your job, because it's not your job. It's the business making money.
And this is how you retire early. Okay. So lastly, as a bonus, we have this thing called a substitution of collateral. Right? I'm going to do this quick because we're 5 minutes after the hour. But here's what happens. You have a property, and your let's say you have a property that's worth $300,000 and you pay $220, right? And you put a lease option person in there, and within a year they went and got a mortgage, and all of a sudden they got the $220. And let's say the property's free and clear. The seller's property is free and clear. Or they only owe $180. So there's $40,000 worth of equity. Either way, you call up your seller and say, hey, I ran into a bunch of cash, or the buyer's cashing me out. I was kind of wondering, would you be interested in taking your profit and putting it on another piece of property? And I keep paying you when I'm paying you, so you can keep making more money and don't have to pay the capital gains tax if they have it. So you get your buyer to pay off the original loan, and then the lawyer or the closing escrow company takes the money and puts it on another piece of property you have in the pipeline. So they become a private lender for you, and you keep things rolling. You built in a private lender. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the moral of today's story, if you take the time to add all these numbers as a whole profit all together, not individual numbers, right? You can't make a cake with just flour, right? Does it really matter how much you pay for the property with longer durations of payoffs or delayed cash outs? Does it really matter?
Well, within reason.
I bought a house one time in Bristol. I showed in my webinars. I bought a house. The house was worth $200,000 or $205,000. I paid $190 for it, and I was all nervous about it. When I got my down payment money, my money now, it took all my profit out of the house. There was like $3,000 left. People stayed in the house for 2.5, almost 3 years, and then decided to move to Texas. Appreciation came in, and I collected a check, I think, for $38,000.
The time factor.
Yep. All right, so last rule before we go. Once you do your money now, your money monthly, and your money later to see the whole financial picture, you're finding the exact areas where the profit's coming in. This is much clarity. I'm telling you, sanity is the ability to see differences. Insanity is not seeing differences. It's seeing similarities. So the sanity of the deal is to see the differences. Oh, I'm making money over here, but I'm not making money over there. But when I add them all up, here's the total. This is a good acquisition manager at work. Okay? Once you see those numbers, like I'm making money over here, I'm not making money over here, I see what the total is, you then need to decide how you're going to succeed or go forward with this deal. Mostly, how much time do you put into it? So if you have a slot deal that's just money now, and it's only paying you $5,000, are you going to let that deal consume all your time and stop marketing to find the other deal that's going to pay you $100,000? No, your job is to get that deal. We use Creative REI Reply, obviously, and it automates the whole process so that we could put it for sale and we could let the software do 90% of the work for us, and we move on and just check it a few minutes every day to see what our offers are. And we move on to find another deal because we're only making 5 or 10 grand for that deal. And we can't make that the only deal we have. And it consumes all of our time. And we stop marketing looking for another deal because we have one deal that we're only making 5 or 10 grand on. And I got to do this deal so I can figure out how it works. Screw that shit. You don't need that. Because the way Creative REI Replay right now is, you don't need that. The goal is to make sure you break it down and you know where your money's coming from and how much time. Now, if you have a subject to deal in the course of over 5 years, which I've done, you're going to make $500,000. Okay, it's okay to spend hours a day on that deal, because it's making you a ton of money. So you need to separate the chaff from the wheat. You need to say, okay, this deal is only making me $5,000. I don't have much time for that. This deal is making me $500,000. I got to push that deal through. And you need to separate, which I'm going to tell you right now, podcast number 427, which is the next one, right? Yeah, 427. Right? Which the name of that podcast is The Scariest Secrets You Need to Know Today About Creative Real Estate Deals. In this podcast, I am going to break this down for you, and I'm going to show you with great detail how to do this. And I'm going to show you the number one reason. And I know I've said this before, but this is really, really it, because I keep dissecting it. Why investors are not making money. I've uncovered it by accident.
Wow.
And I've talked about it, but never in the length I'm going to talk about it. Episode 427, I am going to kick ass. So make sure you tune in on that, right? So hopefully this sheds some light onto how to analyze your deals easily when originally structuring them. It's not the numbers. It's the formula that you plug the numbers into that's valuable. It's not the numbers. It's the formula and how you use the formula to proceed on how much time and effort you put into a deal or how much time and effort you don't put into a deal. It's the formula that matters, not the numbers. And that's my punchline. Make sure you subscribe to us wherever you're watching us. Make sure you like us. Make sure you leave us a review. Make sure you keep paying attention, because someday you're going to come here and we're not going to be here in the near future. I hope. I mean, it's September now. I hope by the end of the year I have that done. I'm not going to make it a fast transition. I want to make sure everybody has a chance to go get things downloaded, our app downloaded, and get inside the app. And it's going to be much different than what this is. It'll be a lot more personal, and you'll get a lot more good stuff. Okay? So thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. And hopefully you'll listen to 427, because it's a rockin' one. So over and out. Have a good week. Flourish and prosper. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.